It's time for another installment of Flashpoint. This week, Candice Campos sits down with members of Parkinson's Association of Central Florida and a Parkinson's specialist on how to battle this disease.
Good morning, I'm Candice Campos. There is a lot to know about Parkinson's disease, from its symptoms and research to finding help. And here locally, the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida is dedicated to improving the quality of life for all people impacted by Parkinson's disease. And joining me today on Flashpoint is Dr. Ira Goodman, a specialist in Parkinson's, Dr. Rita Bornstein, former president of Rollins College and part of the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida, and John Gabriel, PACF board member, former Orlando Magic general manager, and now currently with the New York Knicks. Good morning, you two.
Good morning, Candice.
Good morning. Good to say good morning, you three. Dr. Bornstein, let's start off with, what is the PACF and your position on the board?
I'm a board member and have been for several years now. And we're very excited about what we're doing because essentially we're trying to bring hope and help to people who are dealing with this disease and also their families and friends. And so we work a lot with Florida Hospital because they have a tremendous outreach program, but also with other associations, organizations, medical facilities, and so on, to bring to people the opportunities that there are for self-help, because Parkinson's is not a killer disease. Right. You can live with it. You have to live with it, and you have to be optimistic, and you have to seek ways of dealing with the disease and ways of dealing with your family and friends who want to be helpful.
Right.
And so we're an outreach organization. We have programs that we support. We just had well, we'll get into that later, but we had a walk for Parkinson's.
On Saturday, right?
Yeah, two weeks ago. And we had about 500 people at Blue Jacket Park who walked. Not all of them walked, but many of them did. And we raised quite a bit of money, about approaching $70,000.
That's fantastic.
Which we will use to support research and activities and so on, and help for caregivers and so on.
Awesome. And John, you're also on the board. And what is your relationship with the PACF and its mission?
Yes, I'm also a board member. Our ultimate, really our group's goal is to provide, at the end of the day, is to provide hope, support, connecting to people that feel like they're alone in this, and we want them to know they're not. So in doing that, we want to raise awareness through our activities, as well as be able to take some of the dollars that are raised to go towards research.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and Dr. Bornstein and John, when and how did you find out that you had Parkinson's?
I found out quite a number of years ago, but I didn't tell anyone but my immediate family. Really? Because I didn't have any symptoms. Some people, well, everybody who has Parkinson's seems to present differently, and the doctor will probably go into that later. But so I didn't have any really visible signs for quite a while, and I kept it to myself. But at some point, I think it was about 3 years ago, I sort of came out of the closet.
Right.
And every year I've had a birthday party for myself and invited my women friends. Yeah. And so about 3 years ago, I decided it was time. And I told people, and since then, it's been very rewarding because people are very helpful and very supportive, and I've been able to help with this organization. Correct. So it's been interesting.
And John?
I sat reading, of all things, a Michael J. Fox article, and I noticed, because I'm a fan, as many people are,
right,
and concerned about his plight in life, and noticed my ring finger quivering, which quickly progressed to a full-fledged tremor, and then it was after some time to digest what was taking place in my life, decided there was no making it go away, but how was I going to use it? Maybe the platform that I once had as a general manager in the NBA to make a difference. And in doing so, and as Rita said, in coming forward and letting people know that I had it, I found out a wonderful thing, and that was that there were so many people that were living their lives with people in their life, if not themselves having PD. And again, it was a time to send the message that they were not alone, and then to continue to use my platform, my connections through people, the good people at the Orlando Magic and others that would provide support and financial support so that we could continue to raise money.
Wow.
John is my hero because he's come out so visibly. He's such a well-known person, and he uses that platform to make a difference, to help other people.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we'll hear from Dr. Goodman about the diagnosis as well as the treatment for Parkinson's and how Central Floridians can help. We'll be right back.
Introducing.
Welcome back to Flashpoint. Today our guests are from the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida, as well as Dr. Ira Goodman, a specialist in Parkinson's disease. Earlier we were talking about the PACF's mission to help serve patients. And Dr. Goodman, how is this disease diagnosed and how is it treated?
Well, Parkinson's disease is a movement disorder, and it has some cardinal motor manifestations, but also several non-motor manifestations. We're basically looking for 4 signs. There's slowness, called bradykinesia. There's stiffness, called rigidity. There's postural instability, where most people, if they're going one direction, they'll be able to right themselves. People with Parkinson's disease, once they start going in one direction, it's very difficult for them to right themselves. And about 3 out of 4 patients with Parkinson's disease will have a tremor, primarily at rest, and tends to dampen a bit when doing activity. It's a clinical diagnosis, and whenever you hear the word clinical diagnosis, it's based on history and examination. Frequently, it's easy to make the diagnosis. However, sometimes it's not, and about 25% of people who present with early Parkinson's disease are misdiagnosed. And then on the other hand, about 20% of people who we feel have Parkinson's disease turn out not to have it. So we do have a scan now, a type of brain scan called DAT scan, which helps us in diagnosis, but it remains a clinical diagnosis. It's based on history and examination and longitudinal follow-up, because sometimes what's not clear initially will turn out to be clear as time goes on. As far as treatment, we have multiple very effective medications. Now, they treat the symptoms. They don't treat the disease. About 50% of my time is dedicated to neurodegenerative research, and Parkinson's disease is the 2nd most common neurodegenerative disease. And with Compass Research, who I work with, who are also focused on neurodegenerative diseases, we're doing multiple clinical trials for Parkinson's disease, many of which hopefully will have a disease-modifying effect rather than just symptomatic treatment. Okay. But what we've been finding over the last several years, a very important component of treatment of Parkinson's disease is exercise. Really? Study after study after study has documented that exercise treats every motor manifestation of Parkinson's disease effectively, and also many of the non-motor manifestations. So if you get the green light from your doctor to go ahead and exercise, if you have Parkinson's disease, the highest amount of exercise you can do and the most intense exercise you can do will turn out to be the most effective treatment.
Wow, I didn't even know that exercise, I mean, it's amazing. And Dr. Goodman, what advice do you have for those living with Parkinson's?
I think one of the best advice is optimism. We have many effective treatments. We have many effective treatments in the pipeline, and now we know exercise is a very effective treatment. The problem is implementing these treatments. Easy to take a pill. Exercise is another story, particularly for patients with Parkinson's who have difficulty with movement. So that's where the patient's family and their caregivers and organizations like the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida really are important catalysts to motivate the patient to take advantage of these treatments, to optimize their lifestyle and their quality of life, and also their caregivers.
Of course, and that was my next question, the caregivers for those living with the disease. I mean, I guess what you can say, the advice for those would be, the #1 advice for the caregiver would be?
I think it's important for the caregiver to put themselves in the patient's shoes. I mean, to just picture, you have to plan 20 or 30 minutes extra in the morning to get dressed, very difficult to even do your buttons, to be walking and then not knowing for the next minute if your feet are going to freeze and you can't move. Called freezing phenomena that some patients with Parkinson's will experience, and it's very difficult to overcome. And so I think being empathetic or having empathy for the patient really helps the caregiver. And again, that's where organizations like the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida play a role. They're the real catalyst to bring the patient and the caregiver together to optimize the quality of life for both of them.
Yeah. Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah, and how close are we finding a cure?
Well, you know, it's very difficult, obviously, to predict that. However, I think of all the neurodegenerative disorders, we're the closest to a cure with Parkinson's disease. Like I mentioned, we're currently doing multiple trials for disease modification. We have a vaccine that we're using now from several different pharmaceutical companies that actually are addressing the signature protein, alpha-synuclein, to try to neutralize it, and we think that's going to be a very viable strategy. There's gene-based therapy that is currently going on to help the brain make more dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that's decreased in Parkinson's disease. There's also gene-based therapy that's addressing the use of what they call neurotrophic factors, which are good for our brain cells. Okay. Now, when we treat a disorder, we look at symptomatic therapy, we look at disease-modifying therapy, and thirdly, we look at the cure, which will actually stop or reverse the disease.
Right.
Having disease-modifying therapy now in the pipeline for Parkinson's disease is our biggest leap forward to getting that cure.
So a positive outlook, at least.
Everything is positive for the future of very effective disease-modifying and possibly cure for Parkinson's. When it's going to occur, we don't know.
Right.
But you know, pharmaceutical companies have gotten bad rap over the years, and a lot of times they deserve it. However, they're very competitive, and they're not going to be successful unless they develop a compound that's effective and safe. And that's why the research sponsored by pharmaceutical companies is very, very strict and very, very regulated. And that's how it has to be and it should be. But I think that impetus of trying to develop a successful agent is the impetus that's going to get us to a very, very good disease-modifying treatment, if not cure, in the near future.
Gotcha. And Dr. Bornstein, how can Central Floridians help with Parkinson's disease awareness?
Well, they can support the Parkinson's Association of Central Florida. They can become knowledgeable about the disease. They can help people with Parkinson's. One of the most important things for people who know people who have the disease is to help them remain independent.
Right.
Not to be, but to help them when they need help. It's a very complicated situation, but it's very important. Independence, help when you need it. And we encourage people with Parkinson's to come forward, to seek the help that they will really make a difference in their lives. And there are caregiver groups which are important for caregivers who get very stressed out because of their responsibilities. So I agree with the doctor. Optimism, exercise. I mean, just from a personal perspective, you have the science, but optimism and exercise and support of your friends and family, very important.
And John, where can we learn more about PACF?
I think the easiest way is to go on our website. But obviously, the exposure that we've got today is wonderful. We want to thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for for being here.
And the doctor addressed the fact that you have to work out hard to feel some results, but I wish he would have said you could lay on the couch and watch basketball or football.
Dang, almost.
As therapy, but does fit along the line of what we do, and that is to try to encourage people to come out, to be independent, and keep moving.
Right.
Well, thank you guys so very much for being here so early in the morning. And we want to thank our guests, of course, for being here with us today. And we'll be back with more news and weather in just a few minutes.
Thank you.